Have you ever stood in the eye of the storm, fists clenched at your sides, screaming into the wind, "God, are you even listening?" Have you ever felt the weight of midnight pressing down on your chest, when the world sleeps, but your soul bleeds? When the silence is so loud it drowns out every Bible verse you've ever memorized? Life doesn't just shake us, it shatters. One phone call unravels your future. One diagnosis rewrites your story. One betrayal makes you question every "I love you" you've ever believed. And in the rubble of what was supposed to be, faith feels less like an anchor and more like a thread, frayed, fragile, one breath away from snapping. But what if the breaking is the beginning? What if this pain isn't proof of God's absence, but evidence of His sculpting? A seed must split open before it becomes a tree. Gold must endure the furnace before it reflects the refiner's face. And you must feel the crush of the cocoon before you fly. Think about it. Moses was a prince, then a murderer, then a shepherd in exile. Before he parted the Red Sea, Ruth buried her husband and followed Naomi into poverty. Before she became the ancestor of kings, Paul was blinded on the road to Damascus. Before he wrote half the New Testament. God doesn't waste wounds. That grief you're carrying, it's not your enemy. That loneliness that gnaws at your ribs, it's not abandonment. That dream that died, it's not the end. This is the sacred paradox. The same hands that let you fall are the hands that will catch you. The same God who allowed the cross rolled away the stone. So breathe. Not because the pain isn't real, but because the promise is more real. Not because you're strong enough, but because He is. You're not buried, you're rooted. And one day, sooner than you think, you will look back at this night and whisper, "Oh, that's what you were doing." The divine pause. Why God's silence is not abandonment. Silence is not absence. It's the sacred space between the notes that makes the music. It's the breath before the miracle. God isn't ignoring you, He's orchestrating. Delay is not denial. It's the divine cultivation of patience, the refining fire that turns faith into unshakable steel. What if the thing you're begging for now would ruin you if you got it too soon? What if the no you resent today is the mercy you'll thank Him for tomorrow? And pain is not punishment. It's the chisel in the hands of a master sculptor. You are not being shattered, you're being shaped. Every loss, every rejection, every sleepless night, they aren't signs of God's indifference. They are the fingerprints of His faithfulness. The closed door is a gift. Sometimes, the most loving thing God can do is hold you back, because He sees what you can't. That opportunity you're desperate for. That relationship you're clinging to. That dream you're convinced will fulfill you. What if walking through that door now would break you? What if the very thing you're praying for would destroy you if it came at the wrong time? God doesn't just look at your desire, He looks at your destiny. He knows the weight your heart can carry, and when it's too much. So when He says no, or not yet, it's not rejection. It's redirection. He's not leading you where it's easiest. He's leading you where it's eternal. The alchemy of suffering. Sometimes the heartbreak saves you. That pain you can't make sense of. It's severing you from what would have poisoned your future. Sometimes the delay builds you. The waiting isn't wasted, it's where your character is forged. What if the years you thought were lost were actually the foundation of your strength? Sometimes the suffering shapes you into the person you were always meant to become. The version of you that's emerging. It's being carved in the quiet, in the struggle, in the unseen. God sees what you cannot. The enemy whispers, "You're forgotten." But God says, "You're being prepared." The enemy hisses, "This pain is pointless." But God declares, "I will use it for purpose." Time and time again, we see it. What was meant to break you becomes the breakthrough. What was meant to bury you becomes the birthplace of your calling. The tears you cry in secret, God collects every one. The nights you suffer alone, He is holding you in the dark. The prayers that feel unanswered, He hears the words you can't even speak. The revelation in the rear view. One day, you'll look back and finally see it. The closed doors that protected you. The losses that liberated you. The pain that positioned you. If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here. You'll trace the dots backward and realize, nothing was random. Nothing was wasted. Not your deepest grief. Not your most desperate prayer. Not your most broken moment. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. This isn't punishment. This is positioning. You are being prepared for something beyond what you've even dared to ask for. So hold on. The story isn't over. And the best chapters, they're written from the ruins. So hold on. Not just with weak hands, but with a heart that refuses to let go of hope. Cling to faith like an anchor in the storm. Because this isn't the end of your story. It's just a moment in the middle. A chapter where the plot twists, the tension rises, and the hero you feels the weight of the battle. But remember, the greatest stories aren't written in comfort. They're forged in the fire. Keep praying. Even when your words feel empty. Even when heaven seems silent. Prayer isn't just about changing circumstances. It's about surrendering to the one who holds time itself. Every whispered plea, every tear-stained prayer, every silent groan, he collects them all. And in his hands, they become seeds of miracles waiting to bloom. Keep trusting. Not because the path is clear, but because the guide is faithful. You may not see the next step, but he sees the entire journey. You may only see the fog, but he's already standing in your future, preparing a place where every tear will be wiped away, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Pain isn't proof that God has abandoned you. It's proof that you're being shaped for something greater. A diamond doesn't form without pressure. A testimony doesn't exist without a test. Even when you don't see the way forward. Faith isn't sight. If you could see the entire plan, you wouldn't need trust. But here's the truth. Darkness isn't darkness to him. The same God who parted seas, shut lions' mouths, and raised the dead is still writing your story, and his pen hasn't slipped. Not once. Even when you feel like giving up. That's when you dig deeper. That's when you remember. You are not alone. The same power that conquered the grave lives in you. The same love that endured the cross is fighting for you. Because the author of your story is still writing, and he doesn't waste words. Every struggle, a sentence, every setback, a setup, every delay, divine timing. He's not just writing a story, he's writing your story. And if the author is God, then every chapter has purpose. No chapter will be wasted. Not the pain. Not the waiting. Not the tears. They're not interruptions. They're installments of a greater glory. No sentence will be without meaning. Every moment, every joy, every sorrow is a brushstroke in a masterpiece you can't yet see. And the ending, it will take your breath away. It will make every why fade into worship. Because the God who spoke light into darkness, who turned crucifixion into resurrection, who transforms ashes into beauty, he's the one holding your pen. Jesus trusted the Father's plan even when it led to the cross. He could have called angels. He could have walked away. But he stayed because love sees the other side of pain. And through his obedience, came salvation, came resurrection, came life. And through your struggle, will come strength. Not the kind that fades, but the kind that endures. Will come purpose. Not the kind the world gives, but the kind heaven ordains. Will come life. Not just survival, but abundance. This is God's plan. It's not always safe. It's not always easy, but it's always good. So when the night feels endless, when the pain feels pointless, when the enemy whispers, give up, choose to trust him. Not because the storm is calm, but because the captain is sovereign. Because his love never fails. It doesn't waver when you doubt. It doesn't run out when you stumble. It doesn't expire when the world says you're too broken. And his plan, it's not just good, it's glorious. So hold on. The best is yet to come.